Hi, welcome to Infinite Wisdom, where we deep dive into all things afterlife. I'm Susan Grau, your host, and I'm so glad you're here today. Today, I'd like to talk about mediumship and what happens in my rooms when people come in to get help when they lost their loved ones. So, first and foremost, people usually come in a bit frightened and unsure and questioning whether or not they actually have people in the spirit world that exist. And they are fearful that they're going to be fooled or tricked or manipulated or um, lied to, or they've been looked up. And I could keep going. And so when they come in, they're already apprehensive. They're afraid of what might come in front of them, and they don't really know how to feel about the reading. So the good news is that a good medium is going to give you information about your loved ones that no one could possibly know, like their personality. Sure, they can look up the name, how they died, but personality is extremely important. So it's one of the first things I'm looking for, a relationship that you had with them, things that you might have done together, the music they liked, what kind of people they were. Did they give you love? Were they positive? Were they negative? Were they abusive? Were they kind? So all different types of energies have all different types of personalities. And so when they come through, one of the things that people don't know is that they are very cautious about when they come through to make sure they show us who they were here. Because if we don't recognize them, you won't believe they're there. So it's not that they carry the memory necessarily, but what they do is they come through, they let us know that they are there by telling us the things that you would know, not us, you would understand and know from your life journey with them. People ask me a lot, do they remember all the bad things? Because why are they telling you those things? And I say to them, it's not that they remember them on the highest of vibration, but when they drop their vibration lower, the only way you'll recognize them is if they tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let me give you an example. If someone comes to me and they want to talk to their father who's crossed over, and their father passed away in a very difficult way, it's not that he remembers the pain or the agony of how he died. But when he comes through, he's going to talk about how difficult that was so that you know it's your dad. If I said, your dad's this wonderful, amazing spiritual being and he never believed in the afterlife, you'd say, that's not my dad. So they're going to come through and tell me who they were here so that you recognize them clearly. So that's first and foremost. Once we establish their presence by getting information that no one could possibly know, then we can have a conversation. And that's exactly what it is. It's just a conversation. So here's a reading that was very powerful to me. And it was probably one of my hardest readings. And it wasn't that long ago. I had a mother come to me who lost her baby. Her baby was almost 4 and fell out a window. And the mother came to me just overwhelmingly distraught, as you can imagine. Nothing more difficult than losing a child, in first and foremost, and then in that kind of way. And she was just in agony. And we had a conversation, and her little girl came in, and they talked for a while through me. And she still wasn't fully convinced, and I could tell. And I asked her little girl, can you please give her something that she absolutely cannot deny? Maybe something she's asked you for. Just something. And I can't always hear it, unfortunately. I'm sure they drop in front of me and say it all. I just am having a human experience, so I can't hear it all. But this time I did. And as she stood up to walk out, her little girl started singing a song. And her mother literally sat back down, put her hand on her heart, and was pumping her heart and crying. And she said, the only thing I asked her was if she was really with me to sing that song. And I had trouble holding back the pain of what I was witnessing, number one, but also of that poor mother. But when she left, she was just a tad bit more in tune to the fact that her little girl was there trying to talk to her. And I hope that she went home with that information and connected in, started having the conversation, because that's the most important thing, is that you don't leave them out of your conversations if you want them to talk to you. If you want me to talk to you, but you're not talking to me and you're ignoring me, I'm obviously not going to talk to you. It wouldn't seem right. It's the same way with them. So they're waiting for you to step in and begin to have conversation with them. Another very profound experience was a father who came in, absolute non-believer in every way. And his son had come through and he gave me his name, but his name was his father's name. So naturally, his father thought, well, she just guessed that. So we kept going with the reading. Now, on the other side, he's happy, healthy, joyful, everything possible that you can imagine. But here, he was struggling. He wanted to be in gangs and he got himself into some trouble. And unfortunately, his father was in gangs. And so he felt responsible for the loss of his son. And as we went through the reading, that became more and more apparent. So his son came through. He told me he was shot by a gang member and that he should have listened to his father and that it wasn't his father's fault. And he relayed this in a very powerful way to his father. At this point, his father had tears in his eyes and he was aghast. He couldn't believe it. And so was I, because when you guys are saying to me, oh my God, I can't believe you know that, I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I know that. I'm just as vulnerable as you are. It's just that it's not my loss. So his son gave all kinds of really powerful information. And then right before he stopped, he said, Dad, I want you to tell my big brother, and he named him, that I know we got in a fight before I left the house, but that this wasn't his fault and that I know he loves me. And the dad was just, I could feel him just back up in shock. And he said, that's exactly what happened. And my son is suffering immensely. So I was able to pass that information along to this beautiful family. And he left believing, trusting. And even if that only lasts for a week, because sometimes we need reiteration and repeat, he felt that for a little while. And he recognized that he wasn't to blame for the things that happened to his son. So a very important reading. Those are the kind of readings that touch my soul and allow me to really step into the knowledge that they truly are here. Because I want to have doubt too. I come into work every day with doubt, believe it or not. I walk through my doors and say, okay, if this is really real and I'm not fooling people, please show up, suit up, because I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'm harming people. I'm afraid I'm not telling the truth to them. I'm in fear because it's so important to me to be authentic. And I always hear Spirit say, or my team say to me, when you're done doing the reading, Susan, come out and then tell us that it doesn't make sense to you and that it's not real. So I go into my day and I do readings and the information is so unbelievably, undeniably their loved one that I come out saying, I couldn't have known that. It has to be real. Oh my God, it is real. And that's how I live my life. So it isn't that I have 100% trust and truth, even though I've been there on the other side. I'm still having a human experience. So I can understand other people's doubts. Also, when my loved ones come through, I want absolute, undeniable evidence. And when I get it, I'm in shock. Yes, I'm a medium and I'm in shock. And I sit there with my jaw dropped and I can't get enough. I need more and more and more. And so I know that feeling of wanting to connect into your loved ones. They are not gone. They are here. They're vibrating on a different vibrational energy. And if you listen to podcast 1, I talk a lot about that. So I hope that when you come into my office, you're prepared and ready to just put your guard down. And when you sit in front of us like this, and you're staring us out, and you're not breathing a word, because everyone's told you, don't say a word, don't say a word. That doesn't help. because what you're doing is you're blocking your loved one's energy. Do we want the story? No. So I always say to people, if you talk, don't worry if you slip. They'll tell me something else. But also, I need you to verify for me that I'm accurate because I don't know the story. So here's a for instance. I had someone come to me and their grandmother kept talking about Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy. Keep in mind that I know who Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy are. And her grandmother was probably close to my age, so that would make sense, right? But to me, all I could think of was the dolls. And I wasn't going to say it. And I actually got in a little bit of an argument with Spirit and said, I'm not saying it. And they said, say it. And I said, I'm not saying it. And they said, say Raggedy Ann, Raggedy Andy. And I said, I'm not saying it. And we went back and forth for a couple minutes. And finally, I made the decision to say it right or wrong, which I should have done in the very beginning. And I said, do you understand Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy? The young lady was so shocked and overwhelmed that the tears just came like a floodgate. And the reason wasn't because of the dolls. The reason was because her grandmother used to make doll clothes, and she decided to make Halloween Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy clothes for her grandson and her granddaughter the year she passed. So this was extremely important information because to me, it was just random to hear that, which is usually the case, to be honest with you. So it sounds like random information. I don't know what to do with it. I just have to deliver it and not open it. And what I mean by that is a teacher told me one time, deliver the mail, don't open the mail because you don't know what's supposed to be in it and you don't know what's in it then. You just deliver what you're receiving. And I have to say I struggled with that. I wanted to open the mail. I wanted to know everything. What I was saying made sense. I wanted to know that it had a storyline behind it and I could figure out that storyline, anything to be part of this conversation. But in truth, I don't need to know. I need to know that you know what they're talking about. So I had someone come in and they were quite famous and their loved one had drowned. And they gave me so much identifying information that I didn't know what to do. They were just full bore right away out the gate. Boom, boom, boom. And this person decided you must have looked them up, which if you have integrity, you're not going to do that because you'll have nothing else to say except for what you read. Everything else will go blank. And this person said to me, I want to know one thing, and you have to tell me what that is. Well, I'm sure their loved one was trying to tell them, but they couldn't get it across to me. I tried to give more information about the personality, et cetera, but she just couldn't take it in. And I had to honor that. And it was very difficult for me because I knew the reading was extremely powerful. But I had to let it go and move on. However, a couple months later, I get an email and she says to me, you said a few things that you couldn't have looked up and couldn't have known because they hadn't happened yet. And I want you to know that they happened. And there's no way you could have known. There is the validation. Now, I tell my students validation is our ego getting in the way, our fear that we're wrong. So we really don't need it. But boy, it feels good when we get it. I have to be honest with you. When we get that validation that it makes sense, it's such a relief because our goal isn't to be right. Our goal is to help you understand your loved one is with you, around you, and in you. And if we're inaccurate, we're not allowing that to come into you, that understanding, which is painful for us too, because we know they're there. Another incident happened where someone came to me and she had lost a very close friend. And she was suffering so deeply. And this close friend came through really loud. I mean, barreling through. The laugh that she had was so loud that it was giving me a little headache, even though it was an amazing laugh. And she went, oh my God, that's her. No one laughs like her. No one. And then she started doing like this Michael Jackson happy dance. I think it was the moonwalk. And this woman was blown away because what they used to do together was get up when Michael Jackson would come on and they'd do the moonwalk together. So here comes a woman who isn't trusting anything, who really believes I'm going to figure it out by watching her body or her facial expressions, which they may verify for us, but they don't give us information. They don't tell us that we're, the next right thing that we're saying. A body language won't tell me what kind of music they liked, but it does tell us we're in an accurate place and we're giving good information. But the information was so strong that she couldn't deny that she was there. And I said to her, she reminds me of someone that would sit and watch musicals and eat popcorn with you all day long. And she gasped. And she said, the night before she died, we sat and watched musicals and ate popcorn. And that was it for her. She knew it was her. Now, that could be a good guess, but I doubt it. I don't believe it's coincidental. But I heard her and saw her doing that. And so it made sense to me. And I gave that message. I didn't worry about what it meant. Another woman came to me and her father was so strong in energy. And she came in fact, she talks about this on her TikTok. It's the LA couple. She's an influencer. And she came to me and her father started just like out the gate talking and her mom was with her and he was going on and on and on. And he kept showing me these sideburns. And he didn't seem old enough to wear sideburns. I know years and years and years ago, but I'm from the era where they didn't wear sideburns. It was the era before me and I'm going to be 65. So that tells you something. And I kept seeing these sideburns and seeing these sideburns. And then I saw dark glasses. And it made me think of Elvis Presley, to be honest. And I knew he loved music because he was singing and humming, but I couldn't understand what he was singing at first. And then I said to them, God, he reminds me of Elvis Presley. And as soon as I said that, I heard the song, It's a One for the Money. And I went, no way. All right. So I said, I'm hearing this song. And they went nuts, tears flowing. Movement in their body, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And this father kept going, talking about Elvis Presley. And then he talked about his grandson and he talked about his relationship with his wife and all these other things. And it went on for a very long time, things I absolutely couldn't know. He gave me his middle name, which was interesting. I don't remember if he gave me his first name, but nonetheless, it was so many things that I couldn't know. How he died, what kind of relationship he had with his daughter, how he felt about his wife, the things they did together, when they would dance to a particular type of music. This is a very loving, devoted man to his family, adored his family, and he was just pouring in information. They were sobbing. I was sobbing. They were sobbing. And I couldn't help myself, which is very unprofessional, by the way, but I just couldn't help it. I was feeling their emotions so intensely. At the end of the reading, I just want to clarify something to you. Well, I'll do it at the end. At the end of the reading, they told me that he was an Elvis impersonator. Now, they also mentioned that they didn't give their real name. And so when they signed up, which I don't usually subscribe to be honest with you, but if you're a public figure, it's probably a good idea. Other than that, it's just a lack of trust that I would feel uncomfortable with. I need people who come to me to trust. And even though they might not think the spirit world's real, I need them to trust me because I have a lot of integrity and character. And so I don't want to do guesswork. If they start out with a lie, then I'm not the liar, am I? So, but if it's a public figure, it's really important that I don't know the information fully. So I was very grateful that they hadn't done that. And she actually put a man's name down. So when I opened the door, the first thing I said to her was, oh, I thought you were a man. And she said, I did that on purpose. And I thought, okay, smart. Now, I didn't think at the moment that it could be a public figure, but I was glad when I found out because at first I was like, oh no, they don't trust me. I don't know how I'm going to do this if they don't trust me, because that's where my head goes instantly. But ultimately, they made the right decision. So she did a podcast about it and it was just beautiful. And I was so grateful. Or a Instagram Live. That's what she did. And I ended up thanking her. And when I thanked her, her father just started pouring all this information out to me. And she said, there's no way you could know that. That happened yesterday. There's no way you could know this. That happened 2 days ago. And it just kept coming and coming. And she goes, oh my God, this is amazing. You've made my month. I feel so at peace. And I'm so grateful to have my father come through and give you this information. It was a defining moment for her and her mother. And I was filled with gratitude that I was able to give them that sense of security and safety, knowing that their loved ones were with them. So, in doing mediumship and having these beautiful loved ones come to me, I learned how to do platform. And a platform reading is when you go up on a stage and you don't know who's coming, they just buy a ticket and come. And I was in the middle of doing a platform, and I heard this father and this grandfather saying, my son's here and his whole family. My son's here and his whole family. So I said, I have a grandfather and a father here who are telling me his son's here with his whole family, and they've taken up the whole row. Nobody stood up. And I said, I believe his name is Robert. And this young lady stood up. And I said, would you understand the name Robert for your grandfather? And she said, yes, I do. And I said, would you understand that your father's here and they have the same name? And she said, yes, he's right down there. And she points down the aisle. And she said, my father's not real comfortable with this, but he came anyway. And I said, good, let's have him stand up. So the family stood up, and I received a ton of information. So it was time for me to leave. And I could tell the father still wasn't fully convinced, but I had to go on and move on because it was a platform. I was hoping later on he'd understand all the beautiful things that was said to him. They acknowledged everything, but not a convincing acknowledgement. And maybe he thought I knew somehow, some way. He named off a lot of people and their personalities, which again is my favorite thing to get. So I went to turn away, walk away, and I hear the grandfather or father figure say, he has coins in his pocket and they carry very important dates on them. So I took a risk, and I paused, and I turned around and looked at him, and I said, can you stand up for just one more moment? And he stood up, and I could tell he was still a little bit apprehensive. And I said, you're carrying coins in your pocket, your father tells me. And there are very special dates, like maybe death dates or anniversary dates or birth dates. And he was blown. He said to me, there's no way you could know that. They're really here. I believe you. I trust you. I can't believe this. I carry their coins in my pocket every day of my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, etc., with special dates on it. So you see, I was blown away too, by the way. I just have to finish this out. I was really blown away. I just thought for sure it wasn't going to be powerful enough for him. But he came to me later and brought his loved one. And he reminded me of who he was, because I don't remember my readings. And he reminded me of the reading, and that's why I remember it so well. Now, they stay with me bits and pieces, but you'll notice as I'm telling you about the readings, I'm giving you bits and pieces, and then I go, and so on, because I can't remember the rest. I'm in spirit mode. But I didn't remember the coins, but then when he told me about it, I did, because it was so profound for me that I was able to help this man understand that his loved one was there with him, and his whole family was part of that. I was so grateful for this beautiful information. So these are the messages that Spirit gives. They give to me, and most good mediums will get that information. It'll never be perfect. There are days where I don't get good enough sleep. There are days when I don't feel well. There are days when I'm just simply tired, or I've read 8 or 9 people in that day, which is probably not the best idea. They say 3 or 4 a day, but I have a hard time saying no and turning people away when they make an appointment. Or if they write me, it pains me. So I overread. And sometimes the readings aren't quite as powerful, but it's really odd to me that when the readings aren't as powerful as I think they should be, I always end up receiving a beautiful Yelp review, or someone very kind says to me, that was one of the best readings I've ever had. So you see, I don't know what Spirit wants them to hear. I have to trust that they heard exactly what Spirit needed them to hear. I had an incident that was really painful for me. I had a mother come to me via Zoom. She came in a dark room with sunglasses on, a fake name, sitting in a chair with nothing on the walls. So I already knew out the gate that there was no trust, which is pretty scary for me, to be honest. I mean, I'm human, and not having trust, not the fact that she gave a fake name or any of that, which again, I don't encourage any of you to do, because if the reader believes you don't trust them, there's already a chasm between you. Anyway, she wanted to know if I knew who died, and I got that a young child died. I couldn't figure out how. I just knew it was terrible. And I saw what I considered to be hanging or falling. And because I used the word hanging, she assumed that's what I meant when I said falling, like falling from a rope. I just saw the going down. And for me, that could be either one. And then she said to me, that doesn't make sense to me. And I said, okay. And we continued to have the conversation. And some things made sense to her and some things didn't. But then I heard her son. And he said to me, I jumped out a window, which the mother had already told me. And I'm really real, so I'm going to tell you the truth of this reading. And he said, there was a 14-year-old that encouraged it. And I said, do you know someone, to the mother, who is older that might have bullied him or picked on him or encouraged something? And she said, no, he doesn't know anyone that's that age. I said, okay. And she wouldn't nod her head with anything I said. She wouldn't acknowledge anything, which again is not how I read. And normally I would stop the reading, but I really wanted to help this woman until I heard the young boy say, it was my 14-year-old brother who encouraged me. And at that moment, I had to make a judgment call. And it was a really painful one, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to read any further, and that I wasn't going to be able to give any more information, because I knew that if I told this mother this information, she would attack her child. And by the way, I'm changing ages, etc. I just want to say that in case she ever listens to this. She would attack her child, and it would destroy her and her family. So I made a judgment call not to give the information. And I told her, I'm having a very hard time clicking into your loved one. And she said, well, keep trying. And I did. And I saw some numbers, and she said they made no sense to her, which I know they did. And I won't say why, because it would identify her. But anyway, the information went kind of to the wayside. And it was very painful. I was suffering doing this, but I knew from her personality and what I was witnessing in my own empathic energy that this could cause great harm. So we got off the phone, and about, 3 weeks later, I get this horrendous Yelp review. It was just horrible, calling me all kinds of names. And at that moment, I had the decision I had to make, whether to tell her what I actually saw or to move on and just acknowledge that she was upset. And I made the decision with my integrity to acknowledge that she was upset. And I never told her the whole story. And I live with that Yelp review, and yet I never question my decision. Because what I know about being a reader is that we are there to give you the highest good. We are there to help you heal, not break you down and not cause damage. And if a person gets off a Zoom with me or leaves my office and they feel damaged in any way, I didn't do my job. So I will never tell something that I don't hear to a client. But there are times when I use my grief and addiction work, I'm a therapist, to make a judgment call that would be of no help to someone, but nothing but a consequence. And that's hard when you're a reader, because we don't know, right? But I go by my intuitive hits. So that was one that I feel brought me a lot of pain. But I remembered this mother is suffering. She's in agony. She lost her baby boy, and she's angry. And if she needed to deflect that anger onto me, then so be it. So, and I don't do anger well, if I'm honest with you guys. I really don't. So I didn't react that way in the beginning. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. I can't believe, but, I didn't want to tell her that. And I wasn't going to. I hear from my spirit guides and my spirit team, that's not a good idea. Please don't tell them that. So I listen, and my intuition, which is our spirit guides. So as time goes on doing my readings, obviously I become more and more accurate. It's like anything. If you play tennis, but you start out not knowing how and you play every day, you're going to get really good at it, or you're going to give it up. And if you play once a year, you're not going to get really good at it, and you still may give it up. So at the end of the day, it really has to do with us practicing, having integrity and character, doing the best we can for you, for ourselves, and the spirit world. Because my feeling is we are holding the loved one on the other side in our palm, and we are holding your soul in our palm, and we are responsible for what we do with that. And let me tell you, sometimes that responsibility sends me into utter tears because I realize the power of that responsibility and the impact of helping loved ones know that their loved ones are on the other side, waiting to talk to them. So, is it a perfect science? Absolutely not. I'm sure they drop in front of me and they say everything that they want to say, but I'm having a human experience and I'm in the human condition. And so my vibration is not quite high enough to hear everything. And that's why you don't get everything when you go to a medium. But take what you hear and don't worry if it makes sense to you at the moment. We call it mediumship fog. And that's why people write me later or call me later and say, oh my gosh, you won't believe it. I knew who that person was and I lost the opportunity to talk to them. Or the information you gave me came through loud and clear, but I didn't know it till later when I was talking to my mom or my sister or my brother. And they said, that was all accurate. That was so-and-so. Or they give me a sign that you haven't seen yet. And I had one client that his mother kept telling me that she was going to send him an owl. And he said, there's no owls where I live. And I said, I'm just telling you, she's going to send you an owl. And he calls me and leaves me a voice message and sends me an email and says, you won't believe it, Susan. I didn't think I'd see it. I got home on my fence, staring at my driveway, was a real live owl. Now, I was blown away. He was blown away. I thought, good job, Mom. And I knew one more time that all they want us to know is that they're there with us. They love us. They want to communicate with us, and they just want to have a conversation. Let them. Listen and accept, even if you think it's wrong. Just allow it to come in. So these are my stories that I wanted to tell you about my mediumship adventures. I have so many more that I'm going to talk about at different times. I'm also going to do a podcast on getting in touch with your guides, and that will be an interesting one. I want you to know that from my heart to yours, that you are in safe hands with a true medium, and you have to do your homework. Do your homework. If they aren't kind, if they talk to you in a negative way, if they make you feel uncomfortable in any form, if they tell you they're going to dance around candles and get rid of your curses, all of these things are danger signs to me. They're red flags. Be cautious with that. Other than that, go in with an open heart and open mind and let your loved ones talk to you. Thank you so much for coming and listening to my podcast today. I'm very, very grateful. I have something called SpeakPipe, and you can go on my website, press the button, record 90 seconds, and during my podcast, I'll be answering those questions. So please do so. And remember, they're only a heartbeat away. Take care of you.